The NBA Cup break is almost here. Can the Pacers turn their season around and again? Should they even want to? What does history say will come next for this team? And we have a lot to discuss on this team's roster, upcoming moves, and the draft. We'll get to all of it today on the Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Happy Monday. Hope you had a great weekend, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes and Circle City Spin, and today I am back from a crazy weekend of IU sports. I am very sorry to any of my non-IU fan listeners who have to see me look obnoxious in my football jersey and hat, but it's a crazy day. And we're going to talk a lot about the Pacers today. I have lots of stuff I want to dive into. The NBA Cup break will start after the Pacers play tonight. Can the Pacers turn their season around again in that break like they did last year? Should they even want to have that happen? What history says they'll do next? I want to really dive into that stuff before they have after they play the Kings tonight, they'll have 2 games in the next about 10 days. What can that do for them? And then I want to talk about some roster moves that are certainly coming, some injury stuff, and the draft, but not the coming draft, the past draft, because a certain player that many of you already know who I'm talking about has been getting brought up a lot when it comes to the Pacers. The Cup break approacheth. Many teams are already on it. Tuesday night, there will be quarterfinal games. But the Pacers last year, everybody remembers, right? They got there terribly limping. They had this feel-good win in Chicago, ironic timing. And then they played the Hornets at home right before the break and just got smoked. And the vibes were bad. And then they turned everything around in that time off. Can the Cup break help the Pacers again? Is something I want to talk about, both because it's interesting and because it'll be a good launching point for basically every discussion I'm going to have during the Cup break. Spoiler alert, we're going to do a mailbag. We're going to peek ahead at the trade deadline. We're going to assess this team's season so far and going forward with guests. It's going to be a fun break. It's a great time to really assess what's going on, but you need to have the perfect scene set to do that. And I think to perfectly set the scene for you, I need to go back 2 weeks. This is 2 weeks ago, to be clear. So perhaps updated thinking applies. And since this moment, the Pacers are 3-4, 1 more loss than wins. But at the time, the Pacers were in Cleveland, and Rick Carlisle's doing his pregame press conference, and Joe Varden of The Athletic basically asks Rick, hey, you guys really turned things around last year. Do you feel similarly this year that you can do the same thing, that is possible this year? And Rick Carlisle said, yes, I think something is still possible. This is a day-to-day thing. We've just got to stay in the fight day to day, look for daily improvement. And then he talked about those daily improvements being key and the Pacers constantly adjusting to their situation. They've currently won 3 out of 5. So let me be clear. I am not, in any of my next 15 minutes of explaining things, going to tell you how to think or what you should think the Pacers should do or will do the rest of the season. That is not my intention at all. I just want to lay facts on the table in front of you so you can see the thinking that others may have, that the team may have, what this break may be about, because there are obvious reasons to say, hey, we're 5-18, and for the Pacers, we should be looking for the draft. And there are other reasons to say, hey, why not? Why can't we be this team or that team that I'll bring up at some point during this episode? We could do it. We did it last year. So I'm not going to tell you how to think, but here's what I'm going to say. Last year, the Cup break was a couple things for the Pacers. They obviously turned it around with practice time. They practiced on Sunday ahead of Pacers Kings. I think that's the first practice the Pacers have had at home the whole season. They had one in Denver, one in Dallas. I think this was their first one at home. It's hard to find practice time in the NBA these days. So that's a big part of it, and that will be brought up a lot in the coming week and a half or so. One thing that also happened last year at the Cup break, and we'll talk about the differences, is they got healthy, right? Andrew Nembhard came back around that time. Ben Shepherd came back around that time. A couple other guys. There was another major difference we'll get to. And so, lo and behold, we pop into practice, and look who's over on the other end, working with shooting some jumpers, passing the ball to Garrison Matthews. It's Cam Jones. We'll get to him. I'm not saying he practiced. That's just what we saw. And then a couple minutes later, oh, look right there, scrimmaging. That's Quentin Jackson. All right. So what is going on? Like, could this be a part of the Pacers turning their season in a positive direction? Here's the quotes. Cam Jones on his recovery. Rick Carlisle says, quote, "It's non-contact stuff today. I don't think he's scrimmaging live yet. He's getting there. I would think sooner than later he'll be out there banging and stuff. He's making progress. He was in a lot of non-contact stuff, offense and defense today. I know he's very anxious and very excited to be on the floor. 100% finally. So that's obviously good for the Pacers. They would love to evaluate their rookie, and boy, we'll be talking about Cam Jones later. However, Cam Jones returning is not going to turn the Pacers' fortunes around in a positive direction. With no offense to Cam Jones. He might be awesome. Who knows? But rookies are not good. Second-round rookies are not usually good. And especially point guards have the ball a lot. Usually not a good player, right? Especially one who doesn't play their first 3 months now of their NBA season and probably should start their career with the Noblesville Boom. That is still progress. Aaron Nesmith. Rick Carlisle says, there's no timetable. It's going to be a while, hopefully not too long. It'd be great if he could come back playing sometime this month. This month being December. Aaron Nesmith, I remember the hope last year was that it might be December, then it ended up being late January. Yikes, not good. But we'll see. Ben Shepherd, we don't know. And Quentin Jackson, we got timeline clarity on this in Chicago. After that game, I talked about that on this podcast. The exact quote, to be clear, was he's doing better. I don't think Monday, that's tonight, is in the cards. Maybe at the end of next week. Maybe the game Friday, he could be ready. They play in Philly on Friday. He said, we'll have some practice time between now and then, so we'll see what's up, but he's doing better and progressing. I saw him, and I posted the video on my social media feeds of him scrimmaging with Jeremiah Robinson Earl, Tony Bradley, Talon Peter, and a bunch of basketball interns. Looked pretty good, moving pretty well. He's already listed out for the Kings game. So can the Pacers turn it around again with the information you just had? Not Aaron back, probably not Chet back. Cam, we'll see if he's even helpful. But if Quentin Jackson is back and the schedule is soft, right? They just played Chicago. Their next 6 games are Sacramento, Philly, Washington, New York, New Orleans, and Boston's good, I guess. I shouldn't have included them in that, right? New York's obviously a good team. All the rest, totally winnable games. Philly's decent, I guess. Winnable game, right? Yeah, they can win some of those. They could win more than half of those with somewhat ease. Like, they're not going to be favorites all the time, but they could do it. So that's one reason of health, one reason of schedule. Why the heck not? Can this team that's won 3 of 5 keep going? Now, here's the question that actually matters. Well, there's 2. One is, what is actually a turnaround? Because last year's team hit this spot at 10 and 15. And so they were right there at 500, right? 10 and 15 right now would have you in the East playing. The Bucks are 10 and 15, and they're in the play-in right now. And then they obviously went 40 and 50, or 40, what I'm saying, 40 out of 57, 40 and 17 the rest of the way. That is spectacular. That would get them to a 45-win season this year. No one is expecting a 40 and 17 run. 500 the rest of the way for the Pacers right now, who are 5 and 18, right? So 500 the rest of the way is not possible because they have an odd number of games left, but 500-ish the rest of the way is 34 or 35 wins. Recall what I said before the season when reacting to some predictions about the Pacers from other people. Mid-30s is a mess. You do not want to win mid-30s. You want to win 40-plus, so you're like firmly in the plan or better, and you're like actually in the playoffs and learning something about your team in the postseason, or low 30s or worse. Get a top, name your number pick. Everybody will say 1, but like reasonably high pick, right? Mid-30s is a mess. 500's a mess. The problem is, before the season, I said I thought they'd be a 500 team. So even if they hit the ceiling or the reasonable outcome that I thought was possible for them, they're hitting in the mid-30s. So what does a turnaround get you is something that the Pacers should ask, because I do believe that it's possible for them to be close to that 500 team I thought they could be the rest of the season, but that'd be the question worth asking. For what? What are you getting out of it? Now, I don't think that means that they should shut down that idea, and I'll explain why as we continue talking. But that's the other question worth asking is, where does this go? Now, thinking back to last year, as everybody said, the playoffs came around and everybody said, I believe the Pacers are going to win all these series because they had the best or second best or whatever it was record in the NBA from cut break on when they were 40 and 17. So last year's team had a couple things in their favor. One is the injury returns, and the other one was practice time. I think the biggest difference last year is last year's team was injured, but more so just playing awful and like clearly below expectations in ways that this year's team is tipping more towards the injuries being the problem than awful play. Like last year, I said this, and I think I was wrong, but like they kind of happened in tandem. But I said after they lost in Brooklyn, that game that Johnny Furphy started the second half, I said, even with their injured guys playing, they would not be winning games. This year, I think a lot of the times they would be winning if their injured guys were playing, but they're just so banged up. That's a huge difference, right? Once they started playing more and they got guys back, they started winning. The other key difference from last year to this year is they were buyers. The second December 15th hit, that was during the cut break. They traded for Thomas Bryant with that pick swap. They had practice time to integrate him, and they ran. I don't expect them to do that this year. There's not an obvious need or a reason for them to send out assets. So this year, it's just way more because of injuries than playing awful. There's not no way. There's an extremely small probability that their peak finish would be a 40-17 or equivalent, given how many games they have left. Some people thought last year's team could be a 50-55 whatever win team, and that 40-17 record is like about that for a full season. It's a little more than that. Nobody thought this year's team could be at that level, right? Some people said that this team without Haliburton could be a 50-win team. I mean, I think most people thought that was unreasonable. So can this Pacers team turn it around? Yeah, maybe. Should they want to? What is that actually going to take? Is that even possible given what's made them bad to this point, especially already going through what a couple people considered some soft spots in their schedule, including one right now? We'll see. But should they want to? Let's talk about another part of that. What has history said about teams that start 5-18 or worse? Did any of them do anything important? Should that data point matter to the Pacers? We'll get to all that coming up here on Locked On Pacers. But first, everybody, I need to tell you about Robinhood. Nobody knows your money goals better than you. Robinhood puts you in control of your money with tools that work as hard as you do, locking in on every opening, beating your PR, beating it again. Channel that drive into whatever you do, into your money. Robinhood puts you in control of your money. You can trade stocks and ETFs and options and futures and crypto all right on one platform. You can now build and execute your own trades from a desktop with Robinhood's Legends Advanced tools, or take advantage of the new Robinhood Strategies with a tailored portfolio managed by a team of experts. You expect more from yourself, expect more from your money. Get started today at Robinhood.com/yourmoney. Again, that's Robinhood.com/yourmoney. Your money, your move. We are back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making this your first listen to Dan every single day, or second listen. Locked On Hoosiers, of course, for obvious reasons. The obvious reason being the basketball team crisis after 2 losses last week. Just kidding. Big Ten football champions. And if you're sick of the IU talk, just laugh at the fact that Indiana and Duke won their football conferences this year. The playoffs is hilarious and stupid. Notre Dame should be in. Alabama should not. That's my take on that no one asked for. If you're a Notre Dame fan listening, I'm very sorry. That's very stupid. That team is clearly very good and did not make it. And turns out losing 2 games should be better than losing 3 games. And I could go on about that all day, but I'm not a college football expert, nor does anyone here really care about my college football thoughts. Let's keep going here on Locked On Pacers. Pacers are 5-18. I almost said 8-15 just there. So should they want to turn the cup break into a launching point conversation is also obviously worth noting. And I mentioned earlier that I'm not going to tell you how to think. I'm not going to try to change your opinion. I'm just going to lay facts on the table and then explain how that might influence what the Pacers could or could not do, right? So right now, the Pacers obviously have won 5 of their first 23 games. In NBA history, 134 teams have been in that position with 5 or fewer wins through 23 games. And it's going to be 135 when the Wizards in next play, because they only have 3 wins and they've played 22 times. So it's about to be 135 teams in NBA history that get to that point. 3 of those 135 are this season. This year, Pacers, Pelicans, and Wizards are going to be among that group. The Nets avoided it. The Brooklyn Nets are 6-17 and are out of this discussion. That's just incredible. So keep that in mind. 134 teams. 4 of them made the playoffs. That's it. And that is true. Like, register that in your head. 4 of them made the playoffs. But that's not even the entire discussion, because making the playoffs used to be not like comically easier, but in some cases significantly so. Like back in the first team to do it was the 1952-53 Baltimore Bullets, who lost the first round of the Knicks 0-2. They went 16-54 and made the playoffs by finishing 4th in the Eastern Division. Like, it was just different what the standards were to make the playoffs. Another one of those 4 teams that actually made the postseason was the 1967-68 Bulls, who went 29-53 and lost to the Lakers in the first round 1-4. They finished 4th in the NBA's Western Division. You get the gist. Those 2 you can kind of just throw out immediately. That was pre-merger. The playoff brackets and getting in and qualifying were different. They're playing a different number of games. It's just not important. The third team I would like to bring up is the 1984-85 Cavs. If you listened when I talked about teams that rebounded from where the Pacers were before they played the Wizards, because them and the Wizards had the same record. I think they were both 2-14 entering that game. I said, who's breaking out of this? This team is one of them. A rare one in the somewhat modern era post-merger NBA, played 82 games that started as bad or worse than the Pacers and made the playoffs. The 1985-86 Cavs, led by George Karl, they started 2-19. They won their next two games to be 4-19 at where the Pacers are right now. So they were actually worse than the Pacers through 23 games. That team went 36-46 to make the playoffs as the 8th seed, and they lost in 4 games in the best of 5 to the Boston Celtics 1-3. Okay, so not good. So far we're combined. I can't do math very quickly. That'd be 1-5 plus 1-3. That'd be 2-8 in playoff games for the 3 teams that actually survived the Pacers start. The other team of note here that I'm bringing into this discussion, even though they don't technically qualify, is the 2021-22 New Orleans Pelicans, who actually started too good to qualify for this. So this might just be irrelevant. They were 6-16. Or excuse me, they were 6-17 through 23 games. If the Pacers win their next game, the Pelicans lost their game after that, which is noteworthy. So the Pelicans were, in fact, 6-18 through 24 games. If the Pacers beat the Kings tonight, they will also be 6-18. The 2021-22 Pelicans, that's the modern era of the NBA. That is the post-merger play-in era of the NBA. That team finished 36-46, 9th in the West, made it through the play-in, winning twice, and then lost in 6 games to the Suns in the first round. That Suns team went to the finals. I can't remember if that's the one that lost in the second round. That team lost in the second round, but still. So a combined 4-12 in playoff games, no series wins for any of those teams. So there's 2 ways to look at this. The very optimistic fan, by the way, Alize Johnson, a Pacers legend, was on that Pelicans team. I do not think any current Pacers were on this group, as I really quickly double check the roster and make sure. Regardless, it has happened. So if you're the most optimistic fan ever, there you go. That should be your first team to look at. What did the Pelicans do 4 years ago to flip their season and get to a still bad 36-46 and then not make the playoffs, or make the playoffs but lose in the first round, right? And then the Cavs, obviously, there's other teams that have done it, but it's so rare. 4 out of 134, like a 2% thing. Even if the Pacers go, though, again, 500 the rest of the way, they would not get to 36 wins. Also relevant, as that is the record that the Pelicans had. So all this data to say, if you're the smiliest fan of all time, you're cheering every game. Great, there you go. There's your precedent. It's happened before. Also should be noted that the Pelicans did not have their draft pick that year. By the way, they sent it to, I can't remember who, I want to say Charlotte. It might have been Atlanta. They didn't have it. So they had all the incentive in the world to keep pushing and make it. The Pacers do, in fact, have their draft pick for the first round next year. Also very much noteworthy. So the history of this record, which is a perfect time to talk about it because it's a clean break. Maybe they win their next game and this Pelicans team is the absolute perfect team to discuss. Maybe, yeah. Maybe they could turn it around. Should they want to? 4 out of 134 teams, maybe even 3 if the Pacers lose their next game. It's all this is to say it is really, 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 really hard to get out of the spot the Pacers are in and actually like win something noteworthy. Not making the playoffs is something, right? There is value in learning who can pop in a Haliburton-less playoff setting, but is it more valuable than the alternative? That's for you to decide. Like they have to learn something. I still believe that. And that's where I land to end this discussion. And probably my last time I'll talk about what the Pacers' direction should be until they make it clear what their direction is going to be. But there is still value in learning about your players in the best possible setting. That was what I thought, and what the offseason discussion was, the hope was for this season is like, okay, when the best guys are playing, what's Jarris Walker's role? How does he look in that role? Can he leapfrog from that role into a bigger role when Haliburton's back? Same questions for Ben Shepherd. What centers work with what players? Because not only does that matter for this year's team, that's going to matter for these guys sticking around at all. When Haliburton returns for the Pacers, are any of these recent second-round picks any good? Is Johnny Furphy good? Is Cam Jones good? And you can't know that if they're playing in just awful contexts. And, like, this is something we know. I talked about it this summer. I talked about it when I talked about injuries throughout the season. But then Ben Shepherd's in the locker room after Pacers Nuggets, and Ben Shepherd's game that night was his best game of the season. He played great. we're talking about confidence and what led to his big night and how he's feeling. And he's like, it's harder to get rhythm. He didn't say this. I'm paraphrasing. It's harder to get rhythm when you don't know where your shots are coming from every night, or it's different. And it's like, it's one of those things that's like he says it and you go, duh, like you should know that. If someone said it to me who wasn't a player on the Pacers, I'd have been like, yeah, that makes sense. That's a logical thing. But when a player says it, it just hits you as this like, oh yeah, of course that matters a lot. It's like when Nembhard back in Cleveland a few weeks ago was like, yeah, of course our offense stinks. Like half these guys have been here for 2 days and don't know the plays. And he wasn't saying that to insult those players. That's just true. That's how it is, right? And so Shep said that, and it was one of those things I was like, duh. And that is why the where they go from here and what this cup break does for them discussion lands on this. How much do they want to still learn? Especially when Aaron Nesmith is back. And they presumably, they'll be knocking on wood, have 5 of their top 6 and can at least say, okay, McConnell's playing, Siakam's playing, Nesmith's playing. Maybe one of these guys gets hurt by then. McConnell's playing, Siakam's playing, Nesmith's playing, Mathurin's playing, Nembhard's playing. Great. Let's get our guys around them and see what we can learn. Just for a little bit. Just for a couple weeks. Because you can't have a totally lost season where you lose a lot and learn nothing. Yeah, you get a great draft pick, great. But a lost season sucks. The teams that have had it of late, Memphis, disaster right now. New Orleans, disaster right now. I'm not saying the Pacers are headed down that path. I'm just saying when you lose a season, it gets really hard to kind of find your footing. So I do think there is still a lot of value in learning as much as you can. I also understand what history says the Pacers should do, what the past cut break said is possible, but it's probably not as possible for this team because of their different ceilings and different reasons for struggles to this point. And that is my 22-ish minutes on where the Pacers are, what I believe to be possible for them, what history says is possible for them, what I would be doing as them. And maybe they lose to the Kings tonight and it's pathetic. And maybe they get through this stretch of games and they lose to Sacramento and Philly and they sneak by the Wizards and they lose to the Pelicans in New Orleans. And it's like, okay, what are we even doing? We'll see. The results in the next 2 weeks will tell us a lot about this team. I want to talk about some transactions. I want to talk about Garrison Matthews and his immediate future. I want to talk about, I can't believe I'm saying this, Ryan Nembhard. I want to talk about and lots of other stuff that people keep talking about, that some of it is interesting to me and some of it is not. That's all coming up here to close out today's Locked On Pacers. Before we talk about any of that, let me very quickly talk to you guys about FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast, unless you're the Colts. Yikes. One big play, suddenly everything feels different. That is what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You are not just watching the game, you are reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift, a receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. Player props update. As guys heat up, you can bet the next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, much more. Keeps you locked in every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. We are back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making this your first listen today and every single day. If you're an indie person listening, your second listen should be Locked On Colts. Yikes. That sucks. I was so excited for Colts fans that they were good and exciting. And the second they make an exciting, huge trade, it just all seems to be falling apart. Locked On Colts, I have way more on what's going on there. Who should be starting a quarterback? Can they still do this thing? They have a really tough opponent coming up. If you're an NBA person and you're here, thank you for being here. Your second listen, lots of fun games on Sunday night in the NBA, but LeBron was hooping and his streak just ended of 10 straight or 10-point games dating back to when I was 12. Locked On Lakers. We'll have a lot on the Los Angeles Lakers. Okay, a lot of things I want to run through really quick, transactionally or player-wise. One is tomorrow the Pacers play the Kings. That is December 8th, or today. Today the Pacers play the Kings. It's December 8th. That is Garrison Matthews' last game. He can be active on a 10-day for the Pacers. He signed a 10-day on December 1st. So technically it goes through the 10th, but there's no more games after Monday, obviously. I actually think this game matters for his future, legitimately. I mean, what we've seen in recent games is Rick Carlisle turned to Matthews for real chances. He started once. Am I being dumb? He started in Chicago and did not do anything. He got in foul trouble and Ethan Thompson outplayed him. And that's fine. But he also played pretty well against Denver and pretty well against the Cavs. And he was not good at all in his first 10 day. But shooting is super valuable I think Carlisle would like to be able to turn to a shooter often, especially because some of the guys he thought would be shooters for this team are hurt right now. And some of the guys he thought would be shooters for this team haven't been shooters for this team. So having one of them is valuable, and spacing is valuable for the rest of your team. Even if you're playing young guys trying to develop them, they want spacing. I would understand why they'd want to keep Garrison Matthews, beyond this. They had to cut somebody to do it. You can only sign 2 10 days. He's already done that. It would almost presumably be Jeremiah Robinson-Earl, who he's playing instead of. That's the other noteworthy part, is Robinson-Earl was out of the rotation against Denver and literally did not play against Chicago. I think Robinson-Earl's been good. I think if you asked me to straight up who's better, I would say Robinson-Earl. I don't know that I would be waiving Garrison Matthews for Jeremiah Robinson-Earl, but the signs we've seen from the Pacers suggest that that's something that's possible for them. And let's pretend that Matthews plays well tonight against the Kings. Well, great. He'd have 3 good games on this 10-day, 3 obvious games where he says, here's what I'm good at, here's how I can help this team. And if his skills are deemed to be more valuable than other guys, I would at least get it. I could explain it to you and talk about it. So I think how he plays tonight against Sacramento is going to matter. And we'll see where things go from there for the Pacers, because getting other hardships is fascinating to them. I don't know if they're going to. Ben Shepherd won't have missed 3 games after the Kings game. He won't miss his 3rd game until they play the Sixers on Friday, which is noteworthy because that is more time toward recovery for other players. Quentin Jackson doesn't even contribute towards a hardship. So if he's close to returning, then they'd be obviously Toppin's out for a long time. Haliburton's out for the season. Would any 3 of Nesmith, Shepherd, and Jones be out through basically the end of December, just shy of that, like between Christmas and the end of the year? If 2 of the 3 are, they'd be eligible for a hardship again. If not, which it sounds like, Carlisle saying maybe on Nesmith this month, and Cam Jones is doing some stuff, but not everything, and things of that nature. And we don't really know Shepherd's timeline very well, but he doesn't even count yet. Maybe not. Maybe they would literally not be eligible for another hardship. Do they? We don't know. And if Jackson is back, what position would they even need? Probably a wing, right? Probably another wing, but Matthews would literally not be available to them. So keep an eye on this. As usual, the best way to find out Pacers feels for what they need and their timelines for their players is to keep an eye on this stuff when it comes to their hardship contracts, which they have just had to do a million of. The other reason to keep an eye on it is they wouldn't sign a player to a 10-day until a game day. They probably wouldn't do it until Friday, but maybe they wouldn't even do that, because after they play Friday and Sunday, they don't play after that until Thursday. So a 10-day deal would only get you 3 games. And if you wait, you might even be closer to your guys healing. So this time of the year of the season and the frequency of their games makes me think they probably are not getting another hardship, which really means Garrison Matthews is playing for his contractual future, I believe, against Sacramento. Quentin Jackson nearing a return. Does that influence this at all? Maybe. I mean, if he's playing, do you really need a guy, especially if you feel like Ethan Thompson can be your wing reserve? I mean, who knows how comfortable they feel with him after 1 game. Cam Jones is still far away. Do they feel like they need any ball handling? Who knows? But I don't think their injury recovery timelines would have any influence on this. And in fact, it's only a good thing that they would potentially get Quentin Jackson back and then not even necessarily need their hardship player to actually play minutes and instead could go a different route there. Quentin Jackson's a good player. He was a big part of their first win this season. Okay, I'm 28 minutes into this. I get this question a million times, and so I want to talk about Ryan Nembhard, who I'm going to say a lot of statements in a row that I believe are true, that are all relevant to this, that all kind of like run into each other and meet at one focal point. Ryan Nembhard is balling for the Dallas Mavericks. If you are trying to diminish that, you're just lying. He's been playing awesome, right? He's shooting 56% from the field, 9 points a game, 5 assists, making a crap ton of threes, 5 assists a game in 18 and a half minutes, 53.6% from deep. He's obviously playing awesome. I did not scout anybody in this draft, like literally anybody. The Pacers played games until the Monday before the draft. Like I didn't have time to do it. So I have no opinion of what Ryan Nembhard was in college, what the Pacers should have done. I can't tell you what I would have done. I'm not trying to relitigate the draft. In fact, can we stop? I'm kindly asking you to stop doing that right now. We can get there. All right. I promise. But just hear me out for a second. I get so annoyed by the whole idea that the goal of the draft is to get the player who's going to be the best in December of the first season. Last year, do you remember how freaking buzzy Dalton Connect was after a month? And everybody was like, how did this guy fall to 17th? Everybody's so dumb. And I'm like, the goal of the draft is not to get the guy who's the best the first month. Dalton Connect's not good. He doesn't play. anymore at all. Like he was great early, and then this is perfect timing. Like basically his last good game of the season was December 6th of that year. I'm not even saying that I think Ryan Nembhard's going to fall off. First of all, chill. Okay? Chill. He is hooping. We'll see if it keeps up. And if it does, that's great for the Mavs, and we'll see what it means for Ryan Nembhard. I did no scouting, I can't say. But so many people are asking about scouting staffs and how they missed this guy. They have his brother in the building. That's all very true. The brother in the building part makes this different. But every single team passed on Ryan Nembhard. He did not get drafted at all. A lot of teams decided he was not worth picking. This is not a clear and cut thing about the draft. Every year there's reports about this guy didn't want to get drafted. He told teams not to pick him. And that's where we're going to get to in a second. But I'm bringing all this up to say, criticizing picks, a guy that a team picked that stinks, is fair, right? The job of the draft is to pick players who are good. TJ Leaf was not very good, right? Was not very good. He was not good. That pick should be criticized. The Pacers picking him should be criticized. Non-picks is way different to me. If you're criticizing like Jokic went in the second round, the people are like, oh, they should have picked Jokic. Like nobody was talking about Jokic number one. He would have gone number one in a redraft. That is less fair to me. And it always is. I get why this is different. Ryan Nembhard's brother plays for the Pacers. And so I would predict that there was some steering going on for Ryan Nembhard to go to the Mavs, who traded away Luka, and Kyrie was injured, and they did not have D'Angelo Russell yet. Their only point guard at the time was Brandon Williams. It'd be a perfect spot for him to go into it. He could play games like he is. He's playing for them. And lo and behold, I don't know if anybody read this or people just didn't want to. Mark Stein reported in the Stein line this weekend that the Nembhard group with Ryan Nembhard's agents and such met at Prime 47 in Indy on draft night. And one of the people who wanted Ryan to go to the Mavs was Andrew Nembhard. I will read you the paragraph reported by Mark Stein. Among the loudest voices at Prime 47 advocating for that route being the Mavs, league sources say was Andrew Nembhard, the rising Pacer fresh off helping Indiana reach the NBA Finals for the second time in franchise history, told one of Ryan's agents and his brother that he believed going undrafted to ensure he would land in Dallas was Ryan's best NBA pathway. Andrew believed this. Andrew believed that was the move. I almost guarantee the Pacers sniffed around on adding another Nembhard, and they had a two-way after the draft. Remember, there was all that discussion about Enrique and Taylor and all that stuff, right? They had routes to go there, but Andrew thought this was the right thing for him to do. The Pacers knew Ryan. They knew the people around him better than literally anybody in the league. They almost certainly considered it. So just take a deep breath, right? We don't know if this will hold. It might. He looks good. I'm not saying it's not going to. I'm saying we don't know. I'm saying we don't know if the Pacers tried and got spurned by what Ryan's brother Andrew, who plays for the Pacers, believed was the best route for him. I don't think it's fair to criticize non-picks in the first place most of the time. Anyway, Cam Jones hasn't played. Like, we have no idea how good he's going to be. What if he's awesome? Then, like, okay, maybe over Taylor Peters, sure. But what if he didn't want to get drafted? Like, it's just, there's so much to it that I'm like, what are we doing? You know, and a lot of people said he was good before the draft. I have no idea. Again, I did not watch him at all. But I just think some of this criticism is so crazy. If you pick a guy, so if you're picking sixth, and there's like three guys who are in that range at sixth, right? And the guy who goes eighth ends up being better than the guy who went sixth. Yeah, you should get critiqued for not picking the guy that was in your range that was better. I think that is fair. If you pick a guy sixth and then the 45th pick ends up being the MVP from that draft, no one is like, yeah, they should have picked him sixth. Yeah, duh. But like no one was talking about that. I kind of hate that retrospective draft analysis. It's not fair. It's like, obviously every team would love to draft the best player, but they're trying to, I don't know. It's all just, it seems unreasonable to me. Ryan Nembhard's playing awesome. The Pacers and every other team not named the Dallas Mavericks will look bad if he's really good and nobody picked him. I don't think that means that like there's some horrible miscarriage of scouting and relationships because he happens to be playing well for another team. It would obviously be better for the Pacers if he was playing well for their team than not on their team, but I can't believe how many people are talking about it and the way people are talking about it. Anyway, non-guaranteed contracts are only a thing for like 3 more weeks. Then teams can sign 10 days, but every contract guarantees on January 7th. Keep that in mind because let's pretend Garrison Matthews gets another contract. It's basically like a 3-week tryout, right? He could get cut in 3 weeks and then there'd be no guaranteed money on the books. And he and JRE are no longer eligible for 10 days with the Pacers after they have signed 2 each. Okay, that is every roster note and update. I forgot to get to that note the first time when I was talking about Garrison Matthews, so you get to hear me bounce around and finish my rant by talking about something else completely. Thank you guys so much for listening today. Looking forward to many spirited comments about how stupid I am for saying all that about the draft. It's very I'm not absolving anybody of anything. It's very possible the Pacers messed up. It's very possible Ryan Nembhard is awesome. I'm just saying it's December 8th of their first season. And I hate the way that the draft gets talked about in retrospect. It's very unfair to basically everybody involved. Thank you all so much for listening today. We'll be back tomorrow talking Pacers Kings. Can the Pacers win their 4th out of 6? Start their 2nd win streak? The Kings just smoked the Heat. Zach LaVine went crazy. It might not be as easy as the record suggests. And then, of course, lots of guests. We'll do a mailbag this week. They play again on Friday, but a lot of time off to really assess the Pacers to this point in the season. And next week is December 15th, the unofficial start of trade season. We will, of course, be talking trades and what I would be considering as the directions for the Pacers. Thank you all so much for listening today. Have a wonderful rest of your Monday. We will see you very soon.